Competency number 17. At the end of the session, was the pupil encouraged to reflect on their own performance? Please, if you're not completing reflective logs at the end of the session, not later on that evening or expecting them to do it, if you're not doing that, you are not meeting this competency. You should all be doing this at the end of the session. It only needs to take less than 5 minutes. And I would say you could squeeze that down to 3 minutes, really. If you've broke down the session and you've already reflected a little bit and you're sorting faults out as we go, and maybe paused the car from moving once or twice throughout that lesson, you've then broken it right down to the last sort of 10 to 15 minutes realistically, and asking them to reflect on the entire session. So what I generally do, or what I'd encourage you to do, would be reflect on what's just happened, so the last section of that lesson. How did that feel? That felt much better, hopefully. Or it could be, oh my God, that was horrendous. That was just a step too far, that last roundabout. And you could ask them to reflect on why. How did that make you feel? Have I pushed you too far into that? So we're about right. We're challenged on the other ones, the other roundabouts, or the other situations you were in, on that junction or traffic lights, whatever it is. But you felt like that was just a step too far, that last one. So we'll pull it back for next session. Talk to me about how that made you feel, etc., etc. So you can ask them to reflect not only just on that little section that you haven't reflected on yet, but also let's bring back the learning goal. So for example, our learning goal today was to get your positioning and approach speed competent and effective with no help from me, because you've got your test coming up in the next 2 months. Do you feel you've achieved that? And it could be, yeah, actually the last roundabout, I did that on my own, didn't I? You did. Or it could be the last 2 roundabouts, I didn't need any help. You did. And the big thing is now is keeping that consistent. So it's bringing back the learning goal. I would say that's great. Not only just reflecting on the last bit of the session, but also the entire session as well. And if you are using scaling, so some people say on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being poor, 10 being you when you pass your test, for example, or 10 being an advanced driver, where would you rate your roundabouts last lesson? And then you could ask them, now again, where would you rate them now? And hopefully that score's come up, but it isn't up to you to get involved in that scaling if you are using that to reflect. A lot of people use that for reflective learning. Brilliant if you want to do that. Just make sure you don't get involved in that and say, well, actually, I thought you were a 7 last lesson and I think you're a 9 this lesson. It's about the pupil. It's not about your reflection. It's about how did you encourage the learner to reflect on their own performance. So if you are scaling, accept it if they've given themselves 7. Okay. And what about now? How do you feel? Oh, about an 8. Okay. So what have we got to do to get you to a 9 or a 10? And ask them to reflect that way. So yeah, it should be done at the end of each session. There is an app called Reflective, which is a purple square. I think it used to be $4.99. It's very, if you've got an iPad, I think that's great because you can send it, you can fill it in together at the end, talk about what went well. So did we achieve the learning goal first of all? What went well? What didn't go well? What would we like to improve if we could do? What are you doing in the meantime? Are you going out with your mum and dad? Or I've got this brilliant video on when to go at roundabouts. I'm going to send it to you. Can you watch that before next session? It could be something like that. And then, so shall we put a goal in for next session? What would you like to work on? Or we'll work on what is it that happened today that you think you'd like to recap? I generally say if you're, when you're going for your part 3 now, because we've got 45 minutes, please don't introduce a new subject. It really should be recapping an issue or issues from a subject that you've already introduced, because we just don't have time to do a whole debrief and to start that. That would be my take on it. Just give the learner a few things to recap and a goal that's achievable, if that makes sense. So you're sorting out a couple of faults on the move, but at the end, this is the one you want to be scoring. We should be scoring 3 on the last 2. Everyone should be scoring 3 on the last 2, really. Last 2 competencies. But yes, really important that you have enough time, so you get them back 5 minutes early, I would say, to where when the examiner has asked you to finish. And don't forget, you can ask the examiner if they say, I want you back at 22. Does that include the debrief, or do you want me finished by then? So that's usually what I would say. Would you want me finished by then, or the debrief? Some examiners may prefer you to do it verbally. So you may say, I'm going to do this verbally, and then I'm going to write this down afterwards, because some people are faster typers than others and will spend most of the time typing, which is not what an examiner wants to sit and watch. Fine on your lessons. However, you could do it, still go through the same points and do it verbally. So you can chat about that, and then while the examiner's marking you, I'm sure they'll be thankful of that. You could then both fill that in physically, and then you can just click send and it goes. That's on the app. If not, paper and pen's great, but keep some records so we've got a continuity of lessons, and that learner knows at the end they're not just jumping out the car. They are always asked to reflect on how they feel and what went well, what didn't go well, things to improve, what they can do in the meantime. It just helps keep your teaching structured, but also their learning. They know where they are in the learning. It gives them responsibility to learn as well. Hope this helps.